let's give ourselves a little more room to work here because we're going to have menus pop up here on the side. And choose the text tool. See what I mean? Here we go. And let's click in the text here. Let's change the text to Harry P. Let's set the size to 200. And let's change a couple of the other settings here. Let's type out our title. We'll go Bessie Holstein. And if you don't know what a Holstein is, there's always Wikipedia. I'm just kidding. It's a type of cow. And let's change some of these settings. I think the text is too wide or too far apart for each other, so we can grab the tracking and bring that in to, let's get it pretty close. Really stylized. -41 looks good. I want to take the B and the H and make them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to stretch them out to about 120 or close to it. But when you stretch them out, it kind of changes where they are. So let's take the baseline shift and move them down 20 pixels or so. So everything lines up a little bit better. That looks good. Okay. And now let's move on to the subtitle. So let's click off here, click again. I'm going to take the size down to about 40, and I'm going to change the font from Harry P to Lumos. And I'm going to turn on the bold and type and take that and put that up here underneath the H. Pretty tight. See how that is. We can probably put this back down to 100, put this back to 0, move it down. Looks pretty good. Let's duplicate this layer by hitting Control D and grab it and redo this and move that down to about there. We can probably zoom in here a little bit better to see what we're doing. And okay. Next we'll do we'll do this all caps. So turn on caps lock. Half-Jude. And maybe put that about there. And cud. There we go. Let's zoom back out just a bit. I think I want the half-chewed a little further over. So let's move some of these around just a bit. Grab the and layer. Let's move that nice and tight up under here. Grab the layer. That looks good. Grab the half-chewed layer. I really want this tight, so let's just grab this and nudge it up and in. Grab the up and in, and then let's grab the cud layer. Bring this up here. Now I think I want to also adjust the size of the initial caps here. So let's go ahead and grab those, and instead of 40, try something like 53 for all of these. And then grab the same thing for the beginning of cud. Maybe move this down. That looks good. There we go. And I'm quite happy with that. All right, so let's give ourselves a little more room. Get rid of these so we can see what we're doing. And let's take that text, and it's in the texture assets right now, drop it out of there and grab it and put it into a new composition. And we'll rename this text pre-comp. And making sure you're in the text pre-comp, let's go ahead and duplicate that layer. You'll see why in a second. Let's grab the texture and drop it in the middle. And let's see here, hit R to bring up rotate. Let's rotate this around 90 degrees or close to it. And let's move this to where we get a nice, kind of a nice look here. We can even scale it down so we get a little more resolution on it. That looks pretty good. And what we're going to do is change the texture here to an overlay over the gray lettering, and make sure that it is gray lettering. I forgot to tell you that early on. I used RGB value of 114, 114, 114. So anyway, mid-gray. And change the track matte to Luma Matte text, or actually Alpha Matte text would be better. And then change the mode on the texture from normal to overlay. Nothing much happened here, but you'll see why we did that in a second. Next thing we want to do is create a nice kind of bevel look to this. So from the menu, select Layer, Layer Styles, Bevel and Emboss, and twirl down the bevel and emboss. Make sure it's inner bevel. Make sure it's inner bevel, and change the technique to Chisel Hard from Smooth. Change the size to 120. And let's zoom in here so you can see what exactly the change is. See how it's nice and beveled here? If we were to turn that off, it's just flat. Adds a lot of dimension to it. Let's change a couple other settings. The angle is changed from 120 to about 2, which will shift where the highlight and the shadow are. And change the altitude. Actually, we'll just leave the altitude at 30. That looks pretty good. Let's dial down the highlight to 60. And let's change the shadow to 50. There we go. And I think I want to adjust a little bit of the texture color here. So grab the texture. And let's twirl this down a little bit. Grab Effect, Color Correct, Curves. And let's add a little bit of a contrast curve to this. So brighten up the highlights, pull down the darks, just so kind of everything meshes right over that middle spot again, but just have a little bit of a contrast curve. And let's also kind of colorize this a little bit. So with it still selected, the layer still selected, choose Effect, Color Correction, CC Toner. And let's change the mid-tone from this kind of brown to something a little more tealy. Let's try maybe 44 by 62 by 59. That looks pretty good. All right, maybe bring this, whoops, grab all these and maybe bring this down just a bit. Okay, go back to the final composition.